to be doing interstellar travel, and with trillions of planets out there that could support life, that there is interstellar travel going on. They wouldn't have come here. We're not ready. We're not ready because we are not ready to meet members of our own species yet. I mean, the 60 wars this week on planet Earth. So if we're not ready to meet and to embrace members of our own species, let alone other creatures or a sustainable behavior with Earth, we are not advanced enough in our globalization and in our moving further out until we think of ourselves as galactic creatures on the journey together. No, we're not ready to meet them, and we would not welcome them. We'd send the guns first. It would be a national defense. It would be a national security issue, as opposed to a communications issue. And I'm not being cynic, and I'm not being skeptical. I'm pointing at the facts. The pure facts, but it also points out humans got to get it together. They got to get the will, the desire to get it together. That has got to become more important in protecting the tribalism and protecting our provincial interests. Globalization of the species, where we become global creatures, and then solar system, and then galactic kinds of creatures, which we live at a different transcendent level. That's obtainable to us today, if we only desire.
Do you think that that the universities and the schools and even the popular culture are doing a good job of popularizing space and astronomy and science right now?
I think they do. Yes, I think they do a good job. That's not the problem. Is what do we give them? What are we handing them? For example, let me come back to you and ask you a question. What are we giving them today?
On the news, people being interested in Michael Jackson's trial more than the kinds of things that are being discovered in space.
I absolutely agree. That the Michael Jacksons, the Britney Spears, and the Donald Trumps are running the world. There's no question about that. But I know, and I'm serious about that. They are. If you look at the internet, if you look at the explosion of information, 100 television channels, and the massive number of books, magazines, print, and the satellite communications, the internet, all the rest of that, if you look upon that as we're almost forming a global brain here, or we have already, you may even be conscious. I mean, that's a stretch. But how are we to know? A single brain cell does not know it's part of a brain. They can't see that great big picture. But anyway, the gate guarders and the Astopedia, the people that run the media and the like, so there are people that when they sneeze, the entire system reverberates. They kick off huge waves that go through this massive global brain that we have. And it's not the scientists, and it's not scientific information. And so, that's not necessarily just a problem with the space program. That's a cultural problem. And that you want to build the people, you actually make the people that when they sneeze, the whole global brain shivers. You make them, and then you mine money from them. But that's a process that we really do need to get our priorities and get beyond that.
Well, I see a few glimmers of hope with shows like CSI, where they have scientists and geeks as heroes. And I know that in the back in the 60s and 70s, the astronauts were seen as heroes and as rock stars in that world. So it's definitely possible. It's almost as if this is what is currently in focus, and so that's all people care about.
Yeah. It's, I guess it boils down to a sense of values. What are our values? What are our species? What are our national? What are our cultural? what are our value systems? What do we value?
So I wanted to go a bit into the CD that we reviewed here on Universe Today a little way back. Can you give me some background on what went into doing this CD and the people that you worked with?
Mostly, of course, my son was instrumental in that, and we have some other musicians which I adore. John Seri writes a lot of space music. Harry Roberts, we discovered him. He was just living across the street from Todd in Austin. Brian Eno, I've always adored his stuff, the Apollo track and that. So it's basically a montage of things, and we recorded some of my poems in the studio, and then Harry added some music to them. So, and it kind of evolved in that way to be a space-themed audio.
And having finished Cosmic Fireflies, do you think you'll do another CD?
Yes, I think we will. I think we may focus a little more heavily. I need to. The poetry that I wrote were mostly to class assignments. One poem, the longer poem, The One Orbit About the Earth, I wrote for National Geographic magazine. But if I had it in mind ahead of time that we were going to put the poem to music and it would be on a CD, then I would maybe do some different things. But I didn't know that's where those things would end up when I wrote them or when I recorded them. So it's possible that with the specificity in mind it's possible I could do a better job, although there's nothing much like spontaneity. I think a live audience also, live is very nice too. So you might do a live poetry read. And I do live programs that I record on DVDs. I'm just wrapping up one now on Australia from space. I go down to Sydney in 2 weeks to probably put the wraps on that. We've been in post-production here for a year.
One question I get a lot from readers is, how do they become astronauts? One suggestion I've heard is save up $20 million and pay for a trip to space. But do you have any advice for the next generation of astronauts, potential astronauts out there?
I disagree with money. I disagree. I think that's the wrong thing to do. Money, just like we were talking about earlier about who runs the world, and celebrity running the world, and celebrity money and power, they all go together, of course. I disagree with the idea that people who have money should go into space, as artists, the poets, and scientists and other teachers and stuff, that they don't get to go because they don't have money. So I disagree with that grab for resources. So we had a wonderful communicator in space program, teacher in space program, and of course Krista died on the Challenger, and we haven't had the courage to reinstitute that program. We took her backup, Barbara Morgan, we took her as a regular astronaut so that we would eventually get a teacher in space. So, but I think the wider range of people you put in space, the more richly you're going to communicate what space is about. So I've always been highly in favor of flying a diversity of people in space. Money should not be the deciding factor. Your ability to have the experience and bring it home for others should be the deciding factor. Now, new things are happening in the Spaceship One and the Ansari Prize and the next. So new things are happening, but it's not going to open a huge door right away because space is so critical. You have to do it right. You can't just do it, as single events, and you just can't do it just to pull it off. And so you have to do more deeper engineering and backup systems and safety systems, escape systems, and you have to get more into those kind of things. So tourism in space by private enterprise, I think, will be a little slower to happen And